2 decades worth of experience over the Fleischer-Aparo Spectre. So he's at the point where not only is he looking for that eternal rest, but we're also going to find that he's questioning the very nature of this mission. And that's something which is or should be taken as a great cause for concern in terms of Corrigan's motivations throughout this run. And this idea of Corrigan undergoing a journey of self-exploration and discovery, searching for that reward of an eternal slumber, something which is bookmarked beautifully by Mr. Ostrander-Mandrake during their run. So to continue, Amy is fascinated by what she has seen, and she's determined to find out who or what exactly this Jim Corrigan is. And so it leads her to doing some investigative work, and she comes across the office of Madame Xanadu. And she enters Madame Xanadu's office and is able to speak with Xanadu, who says, yes, I'm also looking for Jim Corrigan. He's been missing for some time. Here's my card and my number. If you find him first, please give me a call. And Amy agrees to do this, but she'll later forget. And that will lead to a confrontation between Xanadu, Corrigan, and Amy sometime later. But finally, Amy is able to track Corrigan down. And she makes it quite clear to him that she knows the truth, and she wants to find out exactly what happened with him. And he's not entirely receptive to telling her at first. We get a sense right from the beginning that this is a Corrigan who's really lost his sense of humanity. I mean, he's keeping up the pretense of being alive so he can continue his mission, but he really is the lone wolf again. But there's something about Amy and the way she questions him that gets him to relent. And so he tells her and us what is essentially the post-crisis origin of the Jim Corrigan Spectre. Now, I said that I was going to tell you the difference between a retcon and a revelation. I'm going to do that. It's important because very often I hear people confusing the two. So, for me, a retcon is when you take a piece of established history and you change it. You change certain details, certain facts, and you explain it away as a general change in the timeline or a misunderstanding. But with the retcon, you are told explicitly, okay, this is how it appeared to happen the first time, but now these are the facts. Different people are involved, circumstances, settings have changed. With revelation, you're not changing anything. You're actually adding new details. Things that would be seen from another character's perspective, things that would have been seen originally off panel, but are now being confirmed or being added. A perfect example of that is an issue of one of the Spider-Man titles where Aunt May is confronting Peter, and she says to Peter, you know, Peter, that night when your Uncle Ben died, you were out looking for the robber, and I didn't know that. I was sitting at home, Peter, and do you know what I was going through? I was worried to death that I had lost both my husband and my nephew, but you didn't come back. And so I had to spend that whole night worrying, Peter. To me, that's a revelation because you're not changing the details behind Uncle Ben's death. You're just adding another character's perspective to it. And in this post-crisis origin for the Spectre, we get a mix of retcons and revelations. So here goes. So Corrigan lets Amy see inside his mind, and we're taken back to 1940, and we learn that Jim Corrigan is partners with Wayland Grant. For some reason, his name was changed from Wayland to Wayne. And Jim Corrigan has learned about the whereabouts of Gat Benson, And he goes off on his own, figuring maybe he can make captain if he takes down Benson's outfit single-handedly. He ultimately gets ambushed, and his thoughts are about Clarice. Part of Amy's journey into Corrigan's mind is a look at how Jim and Clarice Winston first came together. They actually met at a nightclub that Jim Corrigan was about to launch a raid upon, but he ended up getting Clarice's number. But Jim is taken down. He's encased in cement and then thrown into the river, calling out Clarice as the barrel sinks to the bottom of the river. And we get an extended version of what happens to Corrigan after he dies. He goes to this sort of purgatory, this place for all these wretched souls of those who died unjustly and are screaming for vengeance. And Corrigan races right to the front of the line, and he starts raging against God. Just to backtrack, we also learned that Jim Corrigan is the son of Father Corrigan, a fire and brimstone type tent preacher who beat the fear of God and sin into Jim Corrigan, resulting in Jim Corrigan becoming that hard-nosed, hard-edged, hard-boiled detective. So here we have Jim, who's newly dead, and he's raging against God and screaming, "Where is the justice? Where is the vengeance?" And when a voice calls out to Jim and questions him, Jim is not afraid to say, "I can do much better than God's justice. I just want the chance." And at this point, the voice says, "Very well, Jim Corrigan, you will be given this great power, but you will be forced to walk the earth, meting out vengeance until such time that all evil has been wiped off of the earth. And hopefully you will be able to gain your eternal rest by wiping out evil, but also learning to deal with the rage that's inside you." And Amy learned something else very important here. The voice says to Corrigan, your mission is to confront, comprehend, and punish evil. So clearly over the last 50 years, Corrigan either ignored this or forgot this, that his mission wasn't just to take on evil and to eradicate it by punishing it. An important part of his mission was to understand the evil, the very nature of this evil. And it's something which Amy will awaken in Corrigan later on. And so Corrigan is sent back to the warehouse. It plays out very much like Morphin Comics issue number 53. We see that Waylon and Clarice have also been taken. Evidently, Clarice got worried about Jim, went to Waylon and said, "Waylon, Jim was supposed to pick me up an hour ago for our engagement party." And clearly Waylon has said to Clarice, "Well, you're not supposed to go with me, but clearly you're not just going to stay at home, so let's go." And they end up getting taken. Waylon's been beaten unconscious. Clarice is tied against the wall. Corrigan is exacting horrific vengeance upon Benson and his men, but Clarice is shot in the heart. And in another extended scene, we see that Clarice's soul is going into the light. And Corrigan, who has yet to adopt the guise of a Spectre, yells out, "No!" And he races after Clarice towards the light. And Clarice looks back and says, "Jim, let me go. I'm not in pain. And the light, it's so beautiful. Please, I want to go into the light." And Jim says, "No." And he grabs Clarice by the leg and he literally pulls her back to earth, puts her soul back into her body, and as he does so, Clarissa's soul calls Corrigan a bastard. But upon being reawakened, being revived, Clarissa has forgotten this. And she asks Jim, what did I see? And Jim says, it's okay, dear. You've just gone through this incredible shock. That's why you saw all this crazy stuff. I'm not dead. I'm fine. You're fine. William will be fine. Those guys just got a massive beat down. Let's go home. And from there, you can assume that the rest of the origin plays out. But later issues of this volume of the Spectre will show us that there are still some more tweaks that Ostrander-Mandrake have in store for the Spectre's post-crisis origin, which I'll certainly talk about in future parts of episode number 124. This is probably the most logical endpoint for this part here. So when I start up again with part 2, we're going to continue our look at the first 12-issue arc of the Spectre, and we're going to see the flip side of this mind meld, if you will, between the Spectre and Amy. And the Spectre is going to get a look inside Amy's soul and see her rather tragic and tortured past. So much great stuff still to come, folks, here on episode number 124. Part 2 will come your way in a couple of weeks, and based on my look at the schedule, part 2 is the final episode I'm going to release before the 2018 Christmas special. So parts 3, 4, and 5 will come out in the new year. But in the meantime, if you want to leave me some feedback, as always, you can email me at comicsandhistory@gmail.com. In addition, or alternatively, you can go on over to the Comics and History Facebook page. Click like so that you get regular updates on future show releases. Until another 2 weeks have come and gone, folks, this class is in recess.